Hi, it's Penny here, and today we're going to be talking about the top 10 science fiction books that I read in the year of 2024. I do have one honorable mention, and that is This Other World by A.C. Buchanan. So just an honorable mention because this was a reread for me, and I loved it as much on a reread as I did the first time. Basically, this is about this autistic woman who has found a real sense of home on this alien planet, but then she kind of stumbles into this like mystery that's going on related to a conflict with a neighboring country on this alien planet, but also kind of this psychic stuff that goes on the planet. This is really short, but definitely worth a read if that sounds at all interesting. Then, getting into the top 10 properly. Firstly, we have The Sudden Appearance of Hope by Claire North. So this is the story about a woman named Hope, and she has this thing where whenever people can't see her anymore, or whenever they kind of stop paying attention to her for like about a minute, they will completely forget her. So it jumps around in time a little bit. We learn that when she was a teenager, her parents kind of started forgetting her until eventually kind of everyone would just forget her all the time. And of course, the obvious comparison for this is Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And I think when I went into this, I said that I expected this to be a lot more of like the functional experience of trying to live your life when no one can remember you, as opposed to the emotional journey, which Addie LaRue focused more on. And I will say that is true, but also there were a lot of emotions in here. I would say it's actually like more raw emotions compared to Addie LaRue, and like Hope is probably like much more broken by the whole experience. But also there is a whole extra thing going on in this book, and that is this app called Perfection. So there has been this app developed that you give it access to all your data, and then it will basically tell you all the time things that you should do to make your life more perfect. And so when Hope stumbles across some women that are using this app, she ends up kind of getting quite involved with the people who are developing this app. And I guess through these two kind of things that are going on, it looks at a lot about what the definition of perfection is and how other people's perspectives of you will inform your views of yourself, which of course Hope doesn't really experience in the same way. So this was really interesting. There were some parts of this that will stick with me for a really long time, and I really did love those parts. I will admit though, the writing is super weird. It's kind of a little bit more literary, but it jumps around all over the place. So sometimes I wish this could have been a little bit more focused. There's a lot of like stream of consciousness, just like dumping a bunch of stuff that's hard to tell what it's even about onto you as the reader. And so like parts of this I kind of hated the way that it was written, but other parts I felt that was able to really convey the emotions of the scene. So this has a really low average rating on Goodreads, and I can totally understand that. However, I also think I will be thinking about the reading experience with this book for a long time. Then at number 9, we have Not Till We Are Lost by Dennis E. Taylor. So this is the 5th book in the Bobiverse series, where we follow this man who was a very successful software developer, and he had arranged that when he died, he would be frozen until, you know, he could be put in a new body or something. What actually happens is he wakes up and finds himself in the body of a spaceship. And it's also a spaceship that can kind of replicate itself. So we end up with a bunch of like spaceship bobs going out into the universe, solving different problems, like investigating different scientific things, meeting up with different kinds of alien races. In book 5, there was quite a big theme about AI, which is a very popular topic at the moment. But these books in some ways can be a bit unfocused because every bob will be off kind of exploring their own thing. There are always some connections between the different things, but sometimes not so much. But I always feel like these books kind of sneak up on me where I'm following along with these different bobs and their problems. I really like following along with the problem solving of the bobs, but I never feel like it's necessarily blowing me away. And then by the end of the book, I discover that I'm so engaged and I don't want it to end. Because while a lot of the threads are wrapped up within this book, there's still some kind of bigger things that we will have to wait until the next book to find out what happens. Also, these books are pretty humorous in a dad joke kind of way. So I think if you like problem solving and dad jokes, and you like the idea of going out and exploring space, then these are the books for you. Then at number 8, we have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. So this is another one of those more literary sci-fis, and a fairly short one at that. So in this, we're following this young woman who really has no real memories beyond being in this single room with these 40 other women. They have no interaction with the outside world except that there are some men guarding them, but there's a lot of like strict rules about not interacting with them at all and just following these women as they live this life stuck in this single room, and I guess what that experience is like. It's very reflective and kind of looks a lot at the meaning of life. Although actually, by the time you get to the end, I guess it's very up for interpretation what this book is about. There's a lot left kind of hanging at the end that there's no answers to. It's more of a book that's asking a lot of questions just through this young woman's experience of a very different kind of life. Then at number 7, we have Foe by Ian Reid. So this is another one with a pretty low average rating, but I really liked it. So in this, we're following this man who lives with his wife kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and then this guy turns up and says, "Congratulations, you've won the lottery, you get to go to space," or you, the husband, but so that your wife doesn't feel too lonely, we're going to leave her a replacement. And then we're kind of going through the experience of this man preparing to go to space and also kind of preparing for this replacement to come in. But the whole thing is just off, like right from the start. The way this guy has turned up, like the way he's acting doesn't make sense. The way that this man who's being told he's going to leave and be replaced, that doesn't really make sense either. The way the wife is acting just seems completely off right from the beginning. Like everything is weird and you don't really know why it's weird. Like the whole situation doesn't make sense, but then the way the characters are reacting to the situation doesn't make sense either. And for most of this book, honestly, you just have no idea what's going on. And that's kind of what I liked about it. I loved just trying to figure out what was happening. I will admit there was a bit in the middle where I felt like it dragged a little bit. And I think this book could have been like more of a novella and it would have been a bit better. I mean, it's not that long anyway, but it was maybe a little bit too long. But still, I really enjoyed the experience of trying to work out what was going on. And then I found the ending very satisfying. Again, I know opinions are mixed on that. And I also really liked what this book had to say, I think, about relationships and the expectations we have on people that we have relationships with. So this isn't one that everyone will love, but I really loved it. Then at number 6, we have The Innkeeper Chronicles by Alona Andrews. So Alona Andrews writes kind of paranormal romance / urban fantasy type stuff, but they always have such strong plots that even though I don't often like romance, I do still like it when Alona Andrews does it because they have so much great world building, great action, great humor, great plots that kind of balances out the romance. The romance as well, I always find the kind of romances I can get behind. It's often characters who start out not getting along that well, but then for whatever reason they have to work together, and through that they kind of form a partnership. So in the Innkeeper Chronicles, basically the situation is all the supernatural creatures of the world are actually aliens. And it turns out that Earth is kind of in the middle of this like transportation hub for the universe. And so there's a treaty in place which allows these aliens to stay on Earth. The deal is that they have to keep themselves a secret and they're not allowed to like have any big wars or anything on our planet. And whenever they come to Earth, they stay at these inns, and it's the innkeeper's jobs to basically keep these aliens safe and also keep them a secret from the rest of humanity. So primarily in the Innkeeper Chronicles, we are following Dina, who is an innkeeper. She's basically trying to get this new inn going and struggling with always strange guests coming to stay. There's also a bigger mystery kind of about what happened to her parents who went missing, her parents having been innkeepers as well. And one of the books in this series also follows her sister who has kind of a romance with a vampire type alien. And honestly, I just loved all these books. Sometimes they are a little bit silly, like the last book in the series that's been released so far, the 5th book, or the 6th book, depending on if you count one of the novellas. But the last one was kind of like an intergalactic bachelor show with quite a lot of politics, but also just a bunch of ridiculousness. But still, even though that doesn't sound like something I'd like at all, I laughed and laughed. I thought it was hilarious, but also really clever and engaging and just so great. Really, it has all the hallmarks of any of Alona Andrews' other stuff, so if you've liked any of that, you'll probably like the Innkeeper Chronicles. If you haven't, and you're open to like a fun sci-fi with really great characters and really great world building and magic and politics and just a great time all around. Then at number 5, we have The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton, and this is yet another book which has a fairly low average rating, and I have to wonder, is it me? Or is it just that science fiction tends to be a little bit more conflicting in the way that people approach it? I don't know. But anyway, I really love The Last Murder at the End of the World. So this is set on this island, kind of after this apocalypse where this fog has spread out across the world, so it's only the people on the island that are left surviving. This island is led by 3 scientists who are the only survivors kind of from before the apocalypse, and then everyone else on the island has been born since then. As well, this island is kind of controlled by this AI system that's able to read everybody's minds. So the story is actually told from the AI's perspective, but they will kind of give you a particular character's perspective in each chapter, but sometimes with little asides that kind of let you know that the AI has a bigger picture of everything that's going on. And then right from the beginning of the book, we know that there is going to be a murder. I was a little bit surprised that that murder doesn't actually happen till significantly into the book. But right from the beginning, we know that there's going to be a murder. And then the situation is that the people on the island have to figure out who caused the murder in order to stop the AI security system from basically letting the fog take over the island. And they only have a limited time to solve the murder. But also, the AI system wiped everybody's memories of what happened when this person was murdered. So the people investigating the murder don't even know, like, are they the murderers? Who knows? So I just found this book so intriguing the whole time. There's so many mysteries that are set up along the way, and then every new reveal kind of gives you more questions, and maybe some of it isn't like as mind-blowing as maybe some people had hoped with this book, but I still had such a great time with it. I saw Chloe Frizzle, I think, describe this as a cozy mystery, and I think that's the way to go into it, like a cozy sci-fi murder mystery. Don't go into it expecting to have your mind blown. Just go into it expecting to have a bunch of puzzles to solve and to have fun while you do it. Then at number 4, we have Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. So this is such a strange book, but I really loved it. So we are following this woman named Gideon who has been raised on the 9th house, which is this planet where everything's very gothic and kind of run down. Gideon has big dreams of escaping the planet, but every attempt they make to do so kind of fails spectacularly. But then they do manage to make a deal with the head of the house that if they go to this competition thing and act as security for the head of the house, that then once they've done that, they can gain their freedom. When they get to the competition, it's very unclear for a long time what the competition is even about. It does kind of turn into a little bit of a murder mystery, but honestly, for most of this book, you won't really know what's going on. But I think I've given away that I don't mind not knowing what's going on. I enjoy the experience of trying to figure it out. Also, this is a really strange book because while there is like some technology around, everything is also kind of like run down and gothic. And the competition is also like based around like necromancy, but kind of necromancy in a quite scientific way. Parts of this to me felt a little bit like dark academia because we had all these necromancers kind of like nerding out over these necromancy science experiments that they were learning about. But I think as well the writing style of this is one that describes things in really strange ways, and often it will set up a sentence so you think that you know where the sentence is going, and then it kind of like veers off and goes in a completely different direction. And I definitely think that that writing style does put some people off, but if you enjoy it, which you should know from quite near the beginning, then I think you will like this book. It's definitely strange, like somehow it manages to tell you what's happening without telling you what's happening. And there's definitely a lot of mysteries still open at the end of this first book. I'm super excited next year to be picking up the next 2 books in the series. Very hopeful that the 4th book will come out once I've done that. But I mean, I'm not the only one that's loved Gideon the Ninth, so let me just be another person to recommend it. Then at number 3, we have another very popular series, and that is the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. So this is a series about Murderbot. Murderbot is a security bot who has hacked their governor module so that now they can make their own decisions, and mostly the decision they want to make is just to be able to watch TV. Unfortunately, they're a security bot, so they also have to work security and look after the humans who they think are endlessly stupid, making stupid decisions all the time, putting themselves in danger. But Murderbot is also kind of good at their job, and you kind of get a sense throughout the series that they do enjoy looking after humans and keeping them safe. So a lot of this book is Murderbot just kind of trying to figure out what they want to do with their life now that they have some level of freedom, and kind of throughout the book their situation changes. Another thing I really like about this series is the AI elements. Murderbot themselves is AI but does have some kind of organic components. But they also interact with a lot of different bots who are like purely AI, and there's a lot of kind of the exploration of humanity and emotions through the way that these different AIs and these different bots experience humanity and emotions. And it's all done with just like this perfect sarcastic tone that I think is so relatable. Like Murderbot's just whole attitude towards life and work is, I think, just so similar to the way that a lot of us feel about life and work, and like their approach to emotions also very relatable. So like somehow, even though a lot of the main characters are AI and bots, it ends up being super relatable and just so much about what it means to be human. I will say some of the plots sometimes drag a little bit at times, and throughout the book series some of the plots are stronger than others. But also a lot of the time it's not really the plot that's the focus, so it kind of doesn't matter. And then at number 2, we have a book that I have just finished, and that is The Book of Coley by Emma Carey. So this is the first book in a trilogy in this post-apocalyptic world. Basically, Coley is telling us his life story about how he made a significant impact on the world, but maybe it wasn't as heroic as we might think. So we start out in the first book learning about how he was raised in this village, and in this world, the trees are now much more active, and it's very dangerous to go out amongst them, and as a result humans are kind of living in these isolated villages, and when you cut down trees to like build a house or something, you have to make sure that the trees are fully dead before you build your house, because otherwise the trees might try to eat you. Although I will admit there were much less marauding trees in this book than I was expecting. What was actually my favorite part of this book is that they still have some elements of tech around, like, so they have certain artifacts from the time of technology that they use, but the situation is that this tech will only wake for certain people. So when you get to a certain age, you get tested to see if the technology will wake for you, and if it does, then you kind of gain a position of power, like a political position. But what I loved is just the misunderstanding of this tech, and as our main character kind of interacts more with some of this technology, in some ways it's kind of ridiculous, and I wish I could talk more about that ridiculous element without spoiling it, but I think you just have to go into it and experience it. But it just had me laughing and grinning and smiling and having such a great time. Like, just a lot of references, subtle references back to our own world and our own technology. And while some of the technology is like very apparently useful in a post-apocalyptic situation, we have to acknowledge that we also have technology in current times that would not be particularly useful, and so some of that is the technology that they're interacting with. A lot of this technology as well at this point isn't really working properly, and there's like some AI elements to the story that I absolutely loved, and I'm so excited to be able to continue this series as well. I will say I think sometimes Coley is a bit of an idiot, makes some poor decisions, but still I really enjoyed learning about his journey. Another warning I would say for this book is that it is written in a very particular dialect. So I chose to pick this up via audiobook because when I tried the first chapter by reading it with my eyes, I found that I kind of stumbled over that dialect. But sometimes certain words are written more phonetically, or sometimes he uses slightly weird turns of phrase that I found a little bit hard to read, but when I could hear it, it just sounded very natural to me. So I would definitely recommend the audiobook for this series. Then at number 1, we have Ancillary Justice and Ancillary Sword by Anne Leckie. I didn't quite get to the 3rd book in this trilogy this year, but again, very excited to have it for next year. So in Ancillary Justice, we are following this spaceship. So this first book is written in 2 timelines. In one, we're following the Justice of Torrin, who is this AI spaceship who experiences the world through multiple bodies that they kind of inhabit, and they are a part of kind of this empire that is colonizing the universe, and they're telling us this particular experience of colonizing a planet that didn't go very well. Then in the other timeline, which is like 2,000 years later, the Justice of Torrin is now only inhabiting a single body, and they're kind of looking to get revenge for whatever happened in the past. And just the way that this played with different perspectives was something I loved so much. But also the way that it looks at class and privilege and colonization and justice and civilization as a whole was something I really enjoyed. And in the second book was quite different. So this was very epic and intense throughout the book, but this one was kind of a lot more cozy. There's a lot more tea drinking, but still it's dealing with a lot of the same themes and still playing with perspective in the same way. So even though it felt very different, I kind of loved it in the same way. I will say at times it can be a little bit hard to follow what's going on. It definitely doesn't hold your hand with explaining how this civilization works and explaining the politics to you. But usually if you wait, you can figure out what's going on. And I think there's kind of a certain satisfaction to just figuring it out eventually when you get there. But I love this book series. And actually the end of book 2 made me cry. So super excited to get to book 3 soon, and of course another one that I definitely recommend. So let me know if you have read any of the books that I talked about in this video, because I would love to chat with you about them down in the comments. Or let me know if you read any great sci-fi books in 2024, because I would love to get some more recommendations. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.